And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It's just Tom and Josh today. The LOOPcast, of course, brought to you by The Loop, every American Catholic favorite morning newsletter. Go subscribe if you haven't already. We got a great show prepared for you guys today. I think we saw what I kind of view as an audition for maybe President 2028, or at least the nominee for the Republican Party. We had J.D. Vance at a Turning Point USA event yesterday. All the clips have kind of circulated at this point.
It was 2 days ago.
2 days ago, yeah. The clip circulated yesterday, but it was 2 days ago. And so now we've had time to kind of sit with them. I want to bring some of the ones that stuck out to us and see how he handled kind of unfettered Q&A. And then Kamala Harris had her own version for what maybe she is speaking to the youth about. The second one we have is Arctic frost. And Josh actually bugged me Wednesday. He's like, why are we not talking about this? This is such a big scandal. I've now gone through it. It really is shocking. The scope of people are calling it the Watergate of the Biden administration, but maybe times 10. It was a really, really shocking power grab from the FBI under the Biden administration. And I'm going to get into all the details. It's a little technical, but I want to walk everyone through it. And I'm happy to announce I'm going to be interviewing Rachel Bovard, who is actually, she actually was a target of this probe, which is crazy. And she's fantastic. So I'm interviewing this afternoon. That's going to be coming out later.
That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to do that. She's an American
she's
hero.
The best.
I love her.
American, completely agree. So, and if you want more Erica, we did do an episode of The Deep. That was really fun. Called The Great Feminization. Erica had a great tape on it. Thanks. And people saying nice haircut. Thank you. But before we get into the
talking
episode,
about you.
Josh, also, before we get to the sponsor today, are you a Halloween guy?
I'm more in the bah humbug category of it. I mean,
well, that's kind of you in general.
Yeah. I mean, you get this far up north and it's dark, it's cold, kids are grumpy. You know, I'm grumpy. Kids are happy and they're hopped up on sugar. And then, you know, it's just, I don't know, keep Dad happy by sending me Butterfinger bars and maybe it'll be all right.
But you don't have any, is there like religious, some Catholics I feel like are kind of like, oh, this is a problem. Isn't it? It's All Hallows Eve, not to do a catechism. It's not bad inherently, right?
No, of course not. I mean, the tradition here was to celebrate All Hallows or All Holy Eve. You know, the idea is the next day is All Saints Day. The day after that's All Souls Day. So, at the Catholic high school my kids go to, it's like, you can dress up for Halloween today. You don't have to wear your uniforms, but you have to come in something relating to the faith. And so my son showed up as the soldier that had pierced Christ, but then later became, Catholic and realized.
Oh, interesting.
So he was all dressed up in his garb, and then,
that's actually sick. I've never heard of that costume.
Yeah, so I mean, he was getting his tunic. I mean, he was up till midnight. I'm like, brother, go to bed. But he had to have it perfect. So
go to bed. Awesome. On that note, the reason we get to do today's show is a sponsor, Life on Belay. I got to tell you about them. So they partner with nonprofits. Again, this is called Life on Belay. They partner with nonprofits and ministries across the country to bring clarity, structure, and strategy to the work that matters the most. But they don't just consult; they come alongside you, helping leaders move from frustration to focus, from burnout to breakthrough. And right now, Life on Belay is hosting a free webinar on November 13th for nonprofit leaders you won't want to miss. It's all about coaching your staff with clarity and confidence, how to reset expectations, hold people accountable, all while maintaining your culture. If you've ever wrestled with underperformance or inconsistent follow-through, I know I sure have, this session gives you a real roadmap plus a performance coaching toolkit every attendee receives to start using right away. Right now, LOOPcast listeners can get exclusive access to early bird registration. So go to lifeonbelay.org/webinar and we'll drop the registration link in the show notes. That's lifeonbelay.org/webinar, where life affirming impact is accelerated. Go ahead, check out that link and check out that webinar. Before I move on.
And it's belay with a B. So don't delay. Check out Life on Belay. Come on.
Well played. Also, we still have the jobs open here at CatholicVote. So if you want to come work with us, we have some really awesome roles available. High impact
roles.
Can't get
enough of me. That's what you got to do. Is you got to apply.
Again, maybe in spite of Josh. Maybe you're a little bit nervous about Josh, but you want to come work with us. Come check it out.
Erica, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's fair. You can spend more time with Erica for sure. Okay, let's get on to the A block here. So we have J.D. Vance at Turning Point USA. So just a little bit of context before we get into some of the clips. October 29th, 2025, Vice President J.D. Vance headlined Turning Point USA's This is the Turning Point kickoff at Ole Miss, hotty toddy, just 7 weeks after TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk was assassinated at the Utah campus. With Kirk's widow, Erica, now leading the organization, 10,000 students packed the pavilion, under heavy security for an emotional tribute, unscripted Q&A, which I found very interesting.
That was the headliner there. Yeah, that was cool.
Very interesting. And a defiant call to keep fighting for free speech and conservative values on college campuses. I also did kind of find in my research funny, this wasn't really talked about a ton, but there was actually a progressive counter protest at this, including Young Democrats of Ole Miss. They had a town hall with Tennessee State Rep Gloria Johnson framing TPUSA as promoting hatred and suppression of free speech, drawing about 100 participants who then followed with drag bingo. So there's two vibes going on. And for those curious of like, I mean, it's the vice president. It doesn't shock me this drew big crowds. Good for him for going too. I know he's personal.
I mean, here's the thing with regards to Trump. Trump can do hour and a half long speech, just keeps going and he weaves and he weaves. I don't know. I mean, Vance can give a speech, but maybe he can't do those barn burning, rallies like Trump can. But I'll tell you this, he might be able to pull this stuff off where he's just doing Q&A from the audience. I mean, this was awesome.
Yeah, pretty shocking, especially after we came from a time where everything was read off note cards or pre-screened before, even within the White House briefing room with the previous administration, who are now kind of doing their struggle session tour. I know KJP and Kamala Harris went on a podcast for the first time. It's like, maybe you should have done that a little while ago when it counted.
Well, I mean,
anyway.
one politician who did this very well was Bill Clinton back in 1992. He would do the town halls, and he did these very successfully, both in his run-up to New Hampshire, where he pulled off a comeback. He actually didn't win, but he was so low in the polls that he got like second or third or whatever, and he was able to spin it as a win because everyone had counted him out. And he kept doing these town halls all throughout the Democratic primaries and then into the general election, to the point where during the presidential debates, his side was insisting one of them had to be a town hall. And so they had people in the audience ask questions. And that was the one time, like, the government is our needs to take care of us as if we're children. It was really embarrassing. And I mean, there's one time where George H. Bush looked at his watch, and the photographers captured it.
Oh yeah, you're done.
So that was so the town hall became a big thing. It never really stuck after that. But like I'm telling you, J.D. Vance, it sounds like he could be somebody who would do very well in that kind of a format, rather than, Trump was a natural at these, hour long, 1 hour and a half long.
I mean, they're like
rallies.
Yeah, they're like WWE.
I don't think anyone's ever going to get better than him at that.
No, it did. Was there any precedent for Trump rally? Like Trump's rallies were like WWE events. They were like concerts, basically.
I mean, it almost harkened back so it's not like the Lincoln Douglas debates, but back in the 19th century, there wasn't television, and so like, I mean, what kind of, and there's no radio even, like, what is their entertainment? So like people, I mean, the Lincoln Douglas debate, it wasn't like an hour long. These things would go on for like 3-4 hours, and people would listen to it and they were enraptured by it because it was
awesome. Yeah.
It was very interesting. So Trump would get up there and he was entertaining. And the thing, I mean, it's like, it's almost like old school, because I was just listening actually on Twitter, and I'm pop on Twitter like I do all the time. And yesterday, and there's William Shatner. I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to him. He's live. Why not? This is the coolest thing. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors. I'm a big Star Trek nerd. And he was talking about how like he had a one-man show on Broadway, and it's such a hard thing to do because, you can't miss, you can't trip. You've got to sustain the audience for the entire hour and a half on your own. There's no rescue. There's no life preserver. There's no, if you're struggling, the other guy can kind of adapt or whatever. You're on your own. And that's why I've always been so impressed with how Donald Trump does that. He's out on that stage and he's got to keep the momentum going and find out where the audience is. That's hard. It's just not a natural thing. That's why politicians stick to a script and they read from it, blah, 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 blah. Right. Where this is a different format. This obviously is, Q&A. I think is fascinating. I think JD would do well to keep going with this. And he's perfectly natural. Trump
didn't confirm he's not going to be running for a third term.
That's all. That's what he's doing there is trolling.
Josh, yeah, of course. But I'm saying here's the future potentially. So let's take a listen. He gave a speech beforehand, and we're going to get into some of the Q&A.
Charlie Kirk would call me, and he would say, not attaboy, but he would say, do more, do more, do more. And I listened to Charlie because he was a dear friend and because I knew that he loved this country. My point is, the best way in your life to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy, it's not to despair, but to hope in the future of this country. If you disagree with something, then get involved in the movement to save this country. If you think that we could be doing more, then pick up the phone and get involved in the effort to change our minds and change the future of the United States of America in the process. My friends, the rebels of Ole Miss, despair is a sin. Do not give in to despair. Let's keep fighting to save the United States of America.
Out of a 20-minute speech.
That was his closing remark there. That was good.
So let's get into the questions here. I think, where do you want to start? There was one that was controversial about his wife. Should we go there?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
it's a little bit long.
This is a person that was frustrated that, J.D. Vance is not interested in, he wants to reduce immigration, and he's like, and your wife is Hindu, but you want to raise all your kids Christian, and
yeah. Let's just get into it here. Let's see. It's a little bit long. I might have to scrub through it.
Hello, Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk here
Audio's
today.
rough too, by the way.
I did not agree with many of the things that you said right ahead of this, but I don't think that's my point to discuss here. What I want to ask is,
okay.
You are married to a woman who is not Christian. In her Wikipedia, I just looked it up. I wanted to know what her faith was. I didn't know this before. But she still calls herself Hindu. You are raising three kids in interracial, cultural, racial, religious household. How are you maintaining, or how are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion? Or how are you teaching them that your kind, they're that kind who got here just few years or few decades ago is different or is better than your mom's kind who got here just a generation before?
now I think you can fast forward.
Yeah, I'll fast forward to 449. She asked like 4 different questions. It basically
he actually was pretty funny about it. It's like, I'm
Right.
not sure I can remember all 9 questions you had there.
It was because it was partially about how he raises kids with the faith, but then it was also about immigration. Like, how can you say, your wife's an immigrant, you immigrated a little, like, how are you handling the immigration question, I think?
You asked a personal question about our interfaith household. And yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. Everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our 2 oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have this own conversation when you're in a marriage. It's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priests who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is you figure this stuff out as a family, and you trust in God to have a plan, and you try to follow it as best as you can, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah, just a good answer.
Very nice. Yeah, I think I skipped over some of the stuff on immigration, but
no, that's okay. Yeah,
it was good. This one I thought was pretty. Josh says this every other show. Let's just get into the answer on this. Basically, the pretext of this answer was, you're ICE and the National Guard have been really aggressive. What do you think about Democrats coming back into power and doing some things like this, but say to pro-lifers or some other group of people? So here's this answer on that.
Okay. So here's something that I want conservatives, I want every conservative to remember. It's an important part of my entire political philosophy is we cannot be afraid to do something because the left might do it in the future. The left is already going to do it regardless of whether we do it. That is the takeaway of the last 40 years.
I voted for that.
I knew you would.
Voted for that.
And in particular, if you look at what we're doing, if Joe Biden wanted to deploy the national...
Yeah. He's like,
I mean,
Joe Biden
what
wanted
would happen if the Biden administration would, I don't know, persecute pro-lifers and go after them with like the federal law enforcement official. Oh wait, he already did that.
I know. Sorry. Yeah.
So don't use it for good things because they might use it for bad things. They already do use it for bad things.
Are you ready to get into some spicy?
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Of course, this came up last show. This is what the youth want to hear about.
I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let me say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really, really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day.
Sounds kind of normal to me.
Sounds pretty normal to me as well. I think that because I'm going to get into Kevin Roberts and the whole heritage thing after this. We're at a point where like the people that are so online are like reading things out of very normal answers. Like that is a very normal, good answer to the question. How many politicians would be able to answer like that at this point in time? Or at least I have seen answer something like that at this point in time. Like Lindsey Graham, or like there's a lot of people that really struggle with this, partially because their interests are tied up in two places. That is the right answer to the question. We put America first. We collaborate with countries that are in our best interest, and we don't let foreign countries have control over the presidency or the country in any way that they should.
It's like a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. But like, I feel like it's just gotten so crazy online. That to me is table stakes. Like that needs to be the first answer to anyone on that question at all. And that's why the hired people's frustration. So I'm really impressed that he had to know that question was going to come up, because this is what people have been asking this forever. And now it's just getting more and more and more. So I was really impressed with that answer. I think that is a correct addressing of the question. Now it needs to be followed with action, of course. Like, for example, he went over to the visit, the Holy Church Sepulchre, and at the same time, the Knesset voted to annex the West Bank. Okay, so that's a problem, right? Like this needs to actually follow with action and more leverage potentially from President Trump to stop that from happening. But I really appreciated that answer. I think it's a potential path forward to the people that are like, hey, I don't want people to have control over foreign countries, to have control over mine, but don't want to fall down the deep dark rabbit hole of the Nick Fuentes, et cetera. I think I could have been a lot more articulated in the last show. Josh, you helped me out. I was just trying to address this is the problem. And because it's not being properly addressed from people who should address it, people go down the Nick Fuentes rabbit hole, which I detest and abhor many of his views. If I wasn't clear enough on that, explicit racism, people based on their ethnicity, is disgusting and should not be tolerated at all. And I disagree with that. Does that mean you deplatform and you just hide like this isn't a problem so that it becomes more and more and more and more popular, more cancelable? That's not the way out of this. Debate is the way out of this. So I have no problem with how it was handled. You can argue about how the debate was had, but unless real things are addressed at the political level, it's just going to continue happening and just going to go further down. So we're going to get into heritage after this, but I thought that was pretty solid on that question. He also had an abortion question from, I think it was the student at the head of their pro-life group. We'll get into that now.
Hi, Mr. Vice President. I'm the president of our pro-life organization here at Ole Miss, Rebels for Life.
I love the accent for these people. It's so beautiful. I love
And
it.
I myself, as a president, am 100% pro-life. And I know you've stated, you being Catholic, that in the past, you've stated that you're 100% pro-life. But since joining the presidential campaign as the VP, you've kind of wavered how you see abortion. So I'm just wondering what your stance is right now.
Sure.
And do you think that someone else's right to liberty trumps someone else's right to life?
Well, first of all, I appreciate your question, and I appreciate the work that you do. You asked the question, do I think somebody else's right to liberty trumps somebody else's right to life? No, I do not. I, in fact, do not believe that. Now, you said, and I'm going to take issue with something you said, just the premise of the question, which is that I've wavered on the pro-life issue. I really do believe that the president has been the most pro-life president in the history of the United States of America. Now, that said, there are two things that I think we have to keep in mind here. Now, one is the very, very hard question of, when we talk about our abortion policy, there are some very, very difficult edge cases. There are cases where you've got, an 11-year-old girl who was raped, who it would be unsafe for her to bring the baby to term. You've got situations where, bringing a baby to term would cause serious bodily harm, maybe death for the mother. That's one of the reasons why we believe in the exception in these cases where you have, again, they're edge cases, they're rare. I think the pro-abortion community would have you believe that's 90% of abortions. That's not true. But we got to be honest about the fact that there are some edge cases. The second thing I'd say about this is that we have to be prudential and practical in what can get accomplished. And there may be disagreements about what exactly that is, but if you look at the pro-life victories that the President of the United States has been able to achieve, he's been able to achieve them because he has worked within the system that we have. If your attitude is you are going to pursue the most aggressive pro-life option, even if it means you lose every election and every outcome means that you're going to be in a situation where the Democrats have abortion on demand up to the moment of birth to the very end. You've got to work within the political constraints that we have. Now, here let me just say something about this. And somebody asked me earlier about my Christian values. And one of the points I made is that when the settlers came to the New World, they found a very widespread child sacrifice. I imagine there are some people who don't agree with my view on the pro-life issue. Let me just make an observation. If you go to historical archaeological sites where there were brothels, and the two oldest businesses in the world are gambling and prostitution, so there were brothels even in very ancient civilizations. If you go back to ancient brothels and you dig up the bones of the women who are working in these places, you will very often find a lot of children who were buried with them. And the answer is that whenever a society decides to discard innocent babies, they also don't treat their women very well. And whenever a society mistreats its women, it is very often the babies who come right after that. There is a reason why Christian civilization ended the practice of child sacrifice all over the world, and it's one of the great accomplishments of Christian civilization. I believe that we should try to be protecting every unborn life. There's a question of exactly how we do it, but I would never say that anyone's right to life should be sacrificed. Thank you.
I think it's a pretty good answer. I mean, basically what he's trying to say is that, without directly saying it, given the political climate of the United States, it would be hard to foresee a moment in the next few years where a person who is 100% against abortion in every case would be able to get elected president or vice president. So why would you exclude somebody like him who's trying to advance the pro-life cause a lot, even if he can't do 100%? Why would you exclude him from consideration? You don't want to make that perfect enemy the good. I understand, other pro-lifers would say, well, we should never compromise. It's like, well, I mean, look, it's an easy thing to say. It's an easy thing to say you shouldn't compromise. But the fact is, he's not wrong. If you put up candidates who are, flawless on the issue, 100% perfect, they may never get elected. And then you deal with the situation where barbarians are controlling everything. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good answer. Again, it's not like he was in a situation where he just gave a speech on this. He's answering it off the cuff. I think he did fairly well.
I didn't think there's any issues with that. There is. Okay, so before we move on to the next session, there is one I'm going to give him a hard time on. So here it is.
Hello, Vice President Vance.
How you doing?
Good. I have a question. Do you condone large private corporations such as Palantir hoarding data caches on U.S. citizens?
No, I don't condone it. And here's the thing. So I get asked about Palantir a lot because there's this internet meme out there that somehow I am super in bed with Palantir. And here's the thing that I'd say about this. Palantir is a private company. They sometimes do a useful service, and sometimes they're going to do things that we don't like. You should be demanding that your representatives do two things when it comes to Palantir or when it comes to any other technology company. Number one, protecting your data. What's going on with artificial intelligence is going to mean that there are massive inducements to steal your data, to harvest it, and to use it against you to sell digital advertisements. That is not what I believe in, and I've been fighting against it, whether it's Palantir or any other technology company, literally before I ran for office. When I ran for office, I was criticized by Republicans in my Republican Senate primary because I was talking then about Google and Facebook harvesting our data. It's unacceptable. I don't care who does it. I don't want them to do it. Number two, and this is also very important, what's going on with artificial intelligence, we got to be worried about large-scale surveillance, okay? Everything. You asked about Palantir. Do you know that every time you make a credit card transaction, the credit card companies are collecting data on how you spend your money? Do you know that every time you linger over a link on the internet for more than a half second, the search engines are collecting data on you so that they can sell you advertisements? One of the biggest questions for American policy over the next 10 years is how to ensure that you are a sovereign citizen. And you cannot be a sovereign citizen if any private corporation or any government can steal something from you that belongs to you.
It feels like a normal answer, Tom. What's your beef?
Normal answer, but really, you got nothing to do with Palantir, as you were hired out of college by the founder of Palantir that got CIA money, and then he bankrolled your entire Senate run. Like, I just, to me, that was such a cop-out as this boogeyman. I'm not related at all. It's like, you're pretty intimately related. Now the question, and maybe politically that's a good answer, but it's undeniable the connections are there. So is he willing to break with the Palantir project, or say Oracle project, of creating a software to gather your data and then allow people to search across it with crazy efficiency? remains to be seen by me. But like by him saying like, no, I got nothing to do with them. Like that's just provably kind of false. So to me, that's the most legitimate allegation against JD Vance, I think, is that he is kind of,
Something that's interesting though.
Yeah.
We had in 1996, the Communications Decency Act, and that was, ostensibly about, decent behavior on the internet. But what it really was is to make sure that as people are posting stuff on, forums and stuff like that, that the companies that are there aren't held liable. And so that was the idea. Like, it's one thing if you're the New York Times, you need to pay for all the photos that you have. But then if you create like an AOL user page where everyone can just get on there and say stuff, and maybe they post an image or something, and it's like, well, wait a minute, that's a copyright violation. AOL's like, don't get at me. This is just some user. It's just a forum. So of course, the corporations are making sure they get their butts taken care of and secured with the Communications Decency Act passed in 1996. But has there been any real,
No.
Bill of Rights, digital Bill of Rights to make sure our data isn't bought and sold all the time? Is there any protection against users? Heck no. I don't know why more
Obviously
politicians,
not.
I don't
Yeah.
know why more politicians, entrepreneurial politicians don't try to jump into this a little bit more. It sounds like you're saying something of that, but I think
Yeah, right. Like I think that's a bone to be like, like, yeah, we should do something about this as you were funded by, like, for a good reason, the biggest boogeyman out there of data collection. So it is an interesting, I've seen all the arguments of like Palantir is kind of the new kid on the block who's trying to break up, say, the Google monopolies and go after kind of the historic ones. To me, there's been no effective attempt at actually like a user's bill of rights that has gotten anywhere, partially because Google enjoys a monopoly status, Meta enjoys a monopoly status, and they're all so embedded in the White House right now. Maybe for like the race for AI, I don't know, but I think that is a good populist opportunity for a politician that really wanted to get behind, like, hey, we want to protect user data, we want to protect your privacy, because no one's doing it right now. So it remains to be seen. That's the one I feel like it has the most potential to stick logic-wise. I don't know if it's even super effective politically, but that would be my one ding, I would say. Before we get on from that, we were talking about, Gen Z and their frustrations and stuff. Kamala Harris did go on a major podcast to give her 2 cents. So we'll see what you think, Josh.
Reduce voting age to 16.
what?
I'll tell you why. So, Gen Z, they're age about 13 through 27. They've only known the climate crisis. They missed substantial parts of their education because of the pandemic.
Agreed.
If they're in high school or college, especially in college, it is very likely that whatever they've chosen as their major for study may not result in an affordable wage. They've coined the term climate anxiety to describe fear of not only being able to buy a home, but that fear will be wiped out by extreme weather, but fear of having children.
I mean,
It is expected that Gen Z will have 10 to 12 jobs in their lifetime. They are a larger number than boomers. They're a specific generation of people who are going to impact our nation and the world. And I think we must invest in them, but I think that they are rightly impatient with a lot of what is the tradition of leadership right now. And if they were able to vote, because they know everything that's happening right now is going to impact them more than anybody older than them, for the most part, in terms of how these systems work. If they're voting right now, at 16 and up, they're going to be talking about the importance of climate. They're going to be talking about the importance of figuring out how AI is going to affect the future of the workforce. They're going to be focused on what are we really doing about affordable housing. And basically in politics, here's the hard truth about this. There are 2 centers of power that tend to influence how politicians think. Groups that vote the most and people who write the most checks. And I'm going to go every day with the people, and thinking about how do we strengthen people actually going to the polls.
So what do you think, Josh? Change the voting age to 16?
well, no. I mean, if anything, I would raise it, but you can't raise it so long as you're drafting 18-year-olds. So,
Which I agree with.
But I'd lower the drinking age to 18, but yeah, I mean, they have climate anxiety because, you and the left have promoted this fear mongering that somehow the weather is going to kill us all in the next, what is it like? Oh, it's going to be in 7 years, and then 7 years later, it's going to be in 10 years. I mean,
did you hear Bill Gates is even off that now?
He's not onto it anymore?
Yeah, he's like, we got to stop calling it that. We need to shift. People are mad at him about it. He's like, this is not, and seems to conveniently kind of time up with the amount of need for data centers and the energy that can consumes. That's just conspiracy brain.
Suddenly now he needs energy, right? Yeah,
that's what it's convenient timing a little bit. But yeah, no, Bill Gates is off that now. He's like, we got to stop talking about it the way that we do. It's counterproductive. So that's like, it seems odd that she.
Well, and again, I mean, I think we should take care of the earth. I think we should be good conservationists. I don't think we should just pollute everywhere and everything. But this idea that the earth is, a little tiny Christmas ornament that could easily shatter is, no, the planet's pretty resilient. So, I think it's a bunch of garbage. And so I do think it's horrible what we've done to our kids.
Completely agree on that. There's elements that I definitely agree with.
Like the whole, we foisted on them this perverse LGBT sexuality, like promoting homosexual behavior, bisexual behavior, or, removing their trying to pretend that they can change their gender, fear mongering on the climate, like, oh, the earth is going to end and all that other kind of stuff. We've done a lot of damage to our children.
Yeah.
And
lockdowns, I think, were damaging beyond what anyone could have possibly imagined.
The thing about the lockdowns that made me most incensed is that time where you had a group of politicians, about 10 or 12 of them standing. They didn't have their masks on, but they made sure that the students underneath them had the masks on. That's the kind of thing that I would just love to have come by and just swat at each of those dads and moms in the face. Like, what are you doing, dude? Absolutely despicable.
Yeah. I read a really, really disturbing article about like a niche of online pornography users. And of course, they experienced an explosion in 2020 because everyone went inside and that's where they went. If you're wondering where all these kind of edgy political takes like the Groypers or whatever they come from, it's not surprising to me. Like, people had everything meaningful stripped out of their life and it was shut down, and they were lied to up and down by all the like keepers of authority, the CDC, the government, etc. Even at the local level, like, you couldn't buy plants.
You do something radical.
Everything was up down.
You do something radical in this country, basically turn the country into a prison for a year or two, and then you wonder how we get radicalism.
Right. It doesn't take a degree to understand what's going on here. So I think, unfortunately, a lot of the shootings, like a lot of the what we know about Tyler Robinson and his living situation or whatever. I was reading some background report on the Lance Twiggs kid who's just like basically schizophrenic.
Yeah, I'd love to know how many of these mass shootings at schools were done by someone who was not on some sort of psychotropic drug, some sort of, like, they all seem to have been on some sort of, medication of some kind.
It's interesting. It was the combination of the medicine and then also the content he was consuming online. So it'd be like he would just take a bunch of uppers and downers and then just scroll through Instagram Reels. Yeah. Well, if you just scroll through like that, kind of like the bright flashing and stuff, like that actually is a melting pot for schizophrenia. Yeah. Anyway, before we get on to good news, did you know American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity, and criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. Scammers can transfer your title out of your name using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't find out about it until collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So, when's the last time you checked your title? If the answer is never, that's not good. And that's exactly what scammers are counting on. The good news is we've partnered with Home Title Lock to offer you all 60 days for just $1. Click the link in the description below and use our promo code LOOP60 to get 60 days for just $1. And you'll also get a free title history report to ensure you're not already a victim. Make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. Click the link below and promo code LOOP60. Thank you, Home Title Lock. On to the good news. Or actually, no, shoot. We still got, dang, we went long in that one. I got Arctic frost. I'll do it quick, and we're going to give a much more in detail with Rachel Bovard, I promise. So if anyone's wondering what Arctic frost is, and they think that's kind of an interesting name, funny enough, is actually named after an orange tree. An orange tree.
All right.
Keep that in mind. It's codenamed for a 2022 FBI investigation into the post-2020 U.S. presidential election activities, primarily focused on Republican efforts to challenge Joe Biden's victory, including this alternate slates of electors theory in key states. Now, it's important to note that the alternate slates of electors, whatever you think about it, I think largely it's a bad idea and dumb. It's already been litigated. This already happened in Hawaii in the 60s. This already has clear legal precedent. So it's not that illegal activity was happening at this point. It was launched as a preliminary inquiry by an FBI agent, Timothy Thibault, in April 2022, but it quickly expanded into a massive dragnet under special counsel Jack Smith. He was appointed in November 2022. Actually, the case, I believe, arrived in his inbox. There's a lot of questioning about the politics of it, et cetera. Another important term to understand, dragnet. What is a dragnet? A dragnet is basically when you open an investigation and cast a really wide net of people you're investigating, getting data on to essentially find a crime. So you don't have good reason to expand it beyond the initial scope, but you do, hoping to find something on people. So that is what the term dragnet means. So if anyone's curious, like how big the scope of this was, over 430 Republican individuals, lawmakers, campaigns, and conservative organizations were targeted by this. Chuck Grassley actually received this information from a whistleblower. So it wasn't even the FBI itself, which was really frustrating for me to hear that a whistleblower had to come forward with this information. Chuck Grassley has called it Biden's Watergate or a political enemies list, alleging it was a partisan fishing expedition to surveil and intimidate the GOP ahead of the 2024 election. So
yeah, it's a fishing expedition. Just throw out a bunch of lines hoping to find something bad. You had no real evidence that there was any wrongdoing. You're hoping to find it.
And if people are like, well, this is just a special counsel doing their job, it had nothing to do with politics or whatever, AG Merrick Garland, Deputy AG Lisa Monaco, and FBI Director Christopher Wray all personally approved this memo. So it wasn't just the special counsel doing their thing. It reached the top. They said, oh, yeah, this is fine. Go ahead and do it. For anyone curious that what they actually requested.
Let's look at the impact.
Sure. FBI requests $117,000 for 40 plus interviews, mobilize agents nationwide, phone metadata toll records collected on 20% of Republican senators. 20%. This includes Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, other names. Jack Smith takes over at this point and issues 197 subpoenas to banks, Verizon, tech firms, non-disclosure orders by Judge James Boasberg, and Beryl Howell hide subpoenas from Target. So basically they said, hey, I think they actually had they tapped his phone, his landline phone in his office, and then tried to go to Verizon and said, hey, don't tell him about this. Don't tell him we're doing this because we think he's trying to hide something or whatever, which is clearly illegal. That actually is illegal. He was aware that it's illegal and it happened anyway. And so now we get this whistleblower that releases 1,700 pages. If people are curious about like who they're going after, it was just about the entire infrastructure of the Trump administration.
It'd be one thing if it's like one or two Republican senators. 20% of Republican senators.
Right, but they're also going after people that like organizations that didn't even exist in 2022. So they went after America First Legal, which wasn't even
in 2020, right?
Right. So like, yeah, it didn't even exist. This was all that was put together for the run up to Trump's run. And this actually all got announced right after Donald Trump decided to run, or at least internally, I believe externally did. So you could say it's related, but I mean, we're talking MyPillow, Conservative Partnership Institute, the entire RNC, the Trump campaign, MAGA Inc., DJT for President PAC, Stephen Miller, Dan Scavio, Jared Kushner, Laura Trump, state GOP chairs. The data sought were donor lists, fundraising stats, communication with Congress and media. That includes Fox News.
And could this information have been clandestinely shared with bigwigs at the DNC, with the Biden, the Biden White House? I mean, he's running for president. He still was. Could he have had all this information and known about this is why what he's talking about bigger than Watergate.
Right.
You've got all this information and you're telling me there's no one in the FBI that's going to share that information with maybe some of the friends that they have that work on the Biden, Harris campaign. the thing why this is so bad. Like, I mean, we know from this stuff, like the whistleblower is the one that blew the whistle on this and let us know about all this stuff that's going on. You're telling me that none of the liberals at the FBI or the Justice Department are going to tell their friends everyone was saying Trump is Hitler, right? Trump is so horrible. It'd be the destruction of our democracy because January 6th was the worst thing ever. We can't let this guy take the Oval Office again. So they put the surveillance out, 20% of the senators, all these hundreds of people who are involved in the conservative movement from top to bottom. And they're not going to get that information and share it with the campaign that's trying to defeat Trump. Come on.
For anyone, I heard Watergate and I even had to go brush up myself. And I'm like, it is funny when you put them side to side. Like this completely dwarfs whatever Watergate was, right? I mean, like, okay, so Watergate, one office was hit, the DNC HQ, 12 people were charged. Arctic Frost, 430 plus Republicans, 34 individuals, 163 organizations, 150 plus senators potentially, Trump inner circle, state GOP chairs, and donors.
Okay, but so I guess I want to try to summarize how I feel, and I feel like a lot of other voters across the country feel like this.
Go for it.
Number one, absolute bare minimum, Judge Boasberg has got to be impeached by the House and bring a trial before the Senate. The Democrats probably won't vote for him to be removed from office, but at least impeach this guy and begin this trial. That is absolute bare minimum. Number two, I want some of these people in handcuffs. Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Lisa Marino, give them bracelets, give them the perp walk, put these people on trial, put them in jail. It's absolutely sick and evil what they're doing. You cannot allow them to get away with this, because if you don't, you're basically saying we're going to have law and order only when Republicans are president, because that doesn't work.
Right.
That does not work. You cannot do this kind of thing. I mean, what?
Josh, wait 1 second, because to me, this kind of part of the problem with all of this is in the beginning, they're like, well, don't arrest people. Don't go after your political enemies because they might do it back. But then we're living in a reality where no one gets arrested for anything. So it's like,
that's not true. Donald Trump got arrested.
Yeah, right. Right. But like, what's the alternative? Like you let even if they're not your enemy, whatever, you let people in government do the most egregious things back and forth. It doesn't matter. And no one gets held accountable. If anything, they get promoted. I'd much rather live in a world where people actually get arrested and there's actual punishments.
So Beltway Republicans would say, don't do anything rash. Don't actually arrest anyone like Merrick Garland or Christopher Wray or Lisa Marino, because they might start going after us down the road. They might try to arrest us. Like,
too late.
They tried to arrest Donald Trump. They tried to kill Donald Trump. When are you going to wake up? Like, stop it. This is absolutely asinine. I'm so sick and tired. Well, we better not do the thing that's most obvious. Well, these people should be arrested. I mean, Joe Biden should have been impeached and removed from office for what he did on the southern border alone.
Right.
This is, it boggles my mind. He would use the FBI to prevent people from exercising free speech. Like, but as long as we don't target, Pornhub, because that's what really free speech is, not actually being able to share with your fellow citizens what you think about what's going on in our country. Like the crimes, the crimes that the Biden administration did. And we're just going to be like, well, we shouldn't get too angry about this. I don't know. I kind of want to have a country where my kids can grow up and not be, in prison for their political views. So let's take care of this now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting Rachel's full perspective on it as she was a part of the Dragnet. So I'm sure she's got a unique perspective there. So that interview is coming out soon. But moving on to the good news now, I actually, again, this is going to be kind of a mixed bag. I'm going to just do a pure good news, Cracker Barrel with maybe the tweet of the year. It says Wall Street mad. Wait, they're really attaching a Cracker Barrel in the East Wing?
Yeah, this is a funny little thing where they shows a mock-up of the renovation of the East Wing, and it's just a Cracker Barrel restaurant attached to the White House. That's awesome. That's
and
fun.
Cracker Barrel's Twitter said, "You probably don't want us anywhere near a remodel."
I like a self-burn. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Well played. Well played. And I actually thought Matt Fradd's video responding to getting bought by the Daily Wire actually was pretty funny. Like he had a kippa on and made a joke about circumcision. I'm surprised he went there. I'm legitimately surprised he went there. Well played. Because you just took the humor right out of the hands of people that are mad about this. Whether or not you agree, disagree, I gotta call it game is game. It was funny. So yeah, funny on Twitter. That's my good news. My second, maybe a little bit more serious. So again, we just had an emotional last show about Nick Fuentes. People online very emotional about this, and for good reason. You know, this is like serious subject matter. So for those who weren't listening to last show, Tucker, there's this big debate about platforming, about open free speech, whatever, with Tucker Carlson having Nick Fuentes, a very controversial figure, on his podcast. And so then the follow-up to that is someone saw that Heritage took off like support for Tucker on their website. And for those who don't know Heritage is like an ironclad conservative think tank. Kevin Roberts is the president there. Really good Catholic guy. You know, I'm just in general a fan of typically what Heritage does. I think they do a good job. So Heritage actually came out with Kevin to address, like, are we distancing ourselves from Tucker? Like, what do you have to say? So here's a statement that got everyone riled up.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned. My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always. When it serves the interests of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other allies, we should do so, with partnerships on security, intelligence, and technology. But when it doesn't, conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government, no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington. The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We don't take direction from comments on X, though we are grateful for the robust free speech debate. We also don't take direction from members or donors, though we are inherently grateful for their support. And we're adding more every day. This is the robust debate we invite with our colleagues, our movement friends, our members, and the American public. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation. The venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail. Most importantly, the American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left, not attacking our friends on the right. I disagree with, and even abhor, things that Nick Fuentes says. But canceling him is not the answer either. When we disagree with a person's thoughts and opinions, we challenge those ideas in debate. And we have seen success in this approach as we continue to dismantle the vile ideas of the left. As my friend Vice President Vance said last night, what I am not okay with is any country coming before the interest of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we are American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's where our allegiance lies, and that's where it will stay.
Let me just go back to the beginning real quick.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned. My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness someone came out and said this, because nothing he's saying here is controversial, although you'd be shocked with the amount of, quote, conservatives, American conservatives online, like saying this is like a dog whistle for anti-Semitism or whatever. I'm like, take him at his word in the beginning. I think J.D. Vance and him are having conversations behind the scenes. I think this is great because Kevin Roberts and J.D. Vance, by all accounts, just good Catholic men, public representatives of conservatives right now in the country. If this can't be said out loud to people, say, of my age group or stripe that have frustrations that and want to criticize the country like a foreign country, literally any foreign country, Israel being the case. And Charlie Kirk himself said this out loud, being very frustrated, feeling like he could critique his own country more than he could critique a foreign one, Israel. People are going to keep going down the side of Nick Fuentes or whoever who says that openly, but also has all of the racist, anti-Semitic views or whatever, like collective punishment, identitarianism, terrible. And I think it's a huge net negative and it's toxic to the soul. But someone needs to say this. And if no one is saying this, people will keep going down the most canceled man in America type rabbit hole. So I'm really happy. This is super common sense. I'm honestly confused whether this is controversial at all. And say what you want about Tucker Carlson, him and his American has the right to criticize who he wants to criticize and talk to who he wants to talk to. And I actually saw more people agree on that than I thought maybe. Like the way out of this is robust free speech and debate. You might have issues with how he handled that, but you should never say he doesn't have the right to talk to who he wants to talk to. Because I promise you, this is what people under the age of 35 or whatever, especially young men, want to hear. They want to hear these debates litigated. They want to hear it out in the open. And that's why the people that are kind of like censoring or canceling or using kind of veiled left-wing phrases to say you shouldn't platform people or whatever, like the platforming is over. Like Nick Fuentes has a huge platform. He has a huge following precisely because people kept punching right. And so I really appreciate Kevin, which I guess he's taking heat for this, for just saying the obvious here. As an American, America first. And as a Christian, my loyalty comes to Christ first. So I just thought it was a great statement. I don't know if you have anything to say, Josh.
Well, and again, part of the problem is that, some of the neocons are just operating in bad faith. They say, we're not saying attacking the state of Israel is anti-Semitic. We're just saying, don't platform this guy. Well, we can have a debate about whether or not Tucker should have interviewed him. I think that's a very valid point. And I think, if Tucker would have, not that he would ask me, but hey, should I interview this guy? I'm like, nah, I think you probably shouldn't. He's kind of a dirtbag.
And I disagree. I think it was good that he did because you can't keep putting him in the hole.
It's worthy of debate. It's an open question. There's perfectly sound reasons on both sides of this.
Yeah.
And so Kevin Roberts is like, well, hey, hold on a second. I think Nick went, a lot of what he's saying is bad and vile, and he said anti-Semitism should be condemned. And people are like, why don't you condemn anti-Semitism? Like he literally did in the video.
Literally, literally the first thing he said.
Like, and don't you realize Nick Fuentes is bad? He says in the video he's vile and bad. Like, so it's like,
but it's the people operating in bad faith. That's
there are neocons that are operating in bad faith who say, I'm not saying you can't attack the state of Israel. And then when you do, they're like, oh, you hate Jews. And you're like, dude, what is your freaking problem? Chill out.
And I think that kind of like the bad faith, the back and forth. Here's another great example of that. So like, another Heritage W, he had Jonathan Haidt. So here's his tweet. Thank you at Jonathan Haidt for reminding everyone at Heritage yesterday that the tech tycoons like Leonid Radvinsky and Solomon Freeman are profiting to the tune of millions for preying on American young men and women. We are proud to be in this fight with you. It's time to arrest, prosecute, and convict the sick perverts behind OnlyFans and Pornhub. Huge W. Fantastic. Pornography is a scourge in society. It's disgusting. It debases everyone. It's terrible. And there's people that make lots of money off it. What did people take away from this? They took away that he named Solomon Friedman because he's Jewish, I guess, which I didn't even think of. But there's good reason to name him. He owns MindGeek. Like, he is a part of this operation. So it's like, I think people are just, you're online, you're like, you're either getting paid for this or something, or you're just so blind to, like, you're just so deep in it that you can't even just see, like, okay, yeah, we should go after these people.
There's definitely billions of dollars being made in pornography. So, slurring and attacking people,
pornographers,
pornographers.
Good thing.
It'd be easy for them to support, people online just throwing mud around. Simple.
I think this is so simple. I really appreciate Kevin Roberts' statement. I thought it was fantastic. Strangely, that takes a lot of backbone today. So yeah, I just think that's like, this is the sane way out. I think there's a lot of people that really benefit from the discourse being so bad faith and crazy you kind of create the problem that you're talking about, whether or not you want to or not. And it discredits the kind of like normal American Catholics in the middle that are just like, hey, I'm Christian and I want my country to come first. They get discredited by everyone else. I just want to say too, like, I've really appreciated Cardinal Pizzaballa's leadership. I'm going to throw this in the chat here. We could put it in the description. He did an interview I just threw it in the chat with Vatican News about the peace deal, the Holy Land, what's going on both sides. As someone that's literally on the ground and has just led with that message of human dignity, for people that want to get a better perspective of what is going on the ground, the real pain that's there on both sides for the Palestinians and for the Israelis, I think he is the right source. Like, I would actually just direct people who want to learn more, go to Cardinal Pizzaballa. He's a fantastic, like, light of hope, I feel like, and just been a great leader in this respect. And I'm really happy he is where he is. So I put that interview in there. If people feel kind of like black-pilled by it all, I would just go to the people on the ground, especially Catholic sources like Cardinal Pizzaballa and Pope Leo too. Josh, did you have good news?
I don't, so I'm just going to go right into
let's go
Twilight Zone
Twilight
because again, we have this element inside the conservative movement, the neocons. We're not really conservative, really. And they pushed us toward, after 9/11, towards war in the Middle East a ton. We made, I think, a lot of mistakes. They ultimately...
Uh-oh. Josh, I think, okay. I'm never sure if it's me or Josh because we do it online. So I'll cover with my Twilight Zone before Josh. Solo LOOPcast for a little while. Hopefully we get Josh back. Celine, you can work on that. So my Twilight Zone, really shocking. King Charles III strips Prince Andrew of titles and evicts him from royal residence. For people curious, this has been going on for a while. But Prince Andrew, so just the background on this, disgraced brother Prince Andrew of his remaining titles and evicted him from his royal residence after weeks of pressure to act over his relationship with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, Buckingham Palace said. After the king's rare move, which follows years of shameful scandals, he will be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and not as a prince, and he will have to vacate his royal lodge mansion near Windsor Castle. This news followed this publication of a book called Nobody's Good by Virginia Guffey, who alleged she had sex with Andrew when she was 17. Sorry, this is going to get a little explicit due to the nature of the information. And Andrew, who said he acted as if he believed having sex with me was his birthright. Pretty gross. Andrew, 65, has long denied Guffey's claims, but stepped down from royal duties after a disastrous November 2019 BBC interview in which he attempted to rebut her allegations. It was bad. I went back and I didn't even know about that at the time. I knew about the Prince Andrew stuff, but really bad. He also has paid millions in out-of-court settlements in 2022 after Guffey filed a civil suit against him in New York. While he didn't admit wrongdoing, he acknowledged Guffey's suffering as a victim of sex trafficking. So to me, this is the first one of the first high-profile, this is pretty unprecedented for King to do this. And unfortunately, we know about more victims and more people that were involved that need to face justice. So I think the British people are kind of like, what's going on here? And one thing I think for sure for the Trump coalition that they have to answer is the complete bungling of the Epstein files. I mean, we just saw every time a new thing comes out about it, seems like someone gets taken out from their position of power. And we need answers on that, no question. So I thought that was pretty crazy. And then I'm going to end with a good news one. Trump is at it again. I'll switch this. Trump. This is funny doing myself. I got my own mic now. Trump recreated the iconic 2019 Halloween trick-or-treating at the White House by putting another piece of candy on a kid's head, this time dressed up as marshmallow. Happy Halloween. Hopefully your trick-or-treating is good. How does he keep getting away with it, dude? So, yeah. Josh, we lost you. Oh, there's Josh. Josh is back. Hey, Josh. My Twilight Zone was Prince Andrew and Trump putting candy on top of kids' heads again. There it is.
So is it my turn now?
Yeah, you can't keep getting away with it. All right, Josh, what do you got?
Well, I've always had a beef with these neocons, and I feel like they've reached their end point. Mm-hmm. We now have, can you believe it? I mean, this is sort of like the online joke, the conservative case for, and then you fill in the blank, and it's everything that's conservatives are against. It's the most important thing ever, right?
Yep.
Well, in this case, it's the conservative case for voting for an Islamic communist. That's right. The godfather of the neoconservative movement, Bill Kristol, has endorsed Zoran Mandami for mayor of New York City. He doesn't even live in New York City, but he doesn't want Cuomo so much he's going to vote for. This is a guy who was so against Trump he's voted for, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, but now he's reached his end point. He's voting for Zoran Mandami.
I mean, to be fair, going back to Cuomo would be ridiculous in his defense.
Sure, but
Not
you
great
could
options.
also
Curtis Lee was on the ballot.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Or do anything but vote for a communist.
I think what people miss in all this too is there's nothing. I see more of a separation based on conservatives on worse than anything anyone says is the amount of death and bombs that people profit off of in the Middle East for no observable gain, right? That's what's annoying to me about this Tucker debate on the right. Is we're arguing about the movement, words, etc. People are avoiding the elephant in the room. It's America has been in the business of regime change, wars that don't benefit us, and death and destruction for millions of people at this point, all for no gain. And Bill Kristol cares about that more than he does. You know what I mean? Than any type of principle or whatever.
He'll embrace a communist who wants to have grocery stores run by the government so long as he can continue with this. And of course, he's voting for a guy who kowtows and pals around with guys who bombed the World Trade Center. So, I mean,
totally. So it's I'd do that just so that I can get back to, we can get back to war hawking in the Middle East.
He is so desperate to go back to his glory days of, the early 2000s when George W. Bush was in power and Cheney was really running the show. Yeah. And we were bombing the heck out of other countries. So that's my number one. My second Twilight Zone. This is actually a very sad thing about our current affairs in politics today. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the advisor Stephen Miller, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, a total of 6 people in the administration have now been forced to relocate their families to living on a military base in order to provide them protection because left-wing psychopaths will protest in their neighborhoods. And in fact, they put wanted posters of Stephen Miller around on telephone poles or, electric poles all around Arlington with their address, their home address on it. I mean, the draconian measures of the Antifa pro-violent left is absolutely reprehensible. And, I don't hear any condemnation of that. So this is kind of what I'm getting at. Every single conservative, every single Republican has to condemn Nick Fuentes, and he is a piece of crap. Okay. But this is happening under our nose where people who are working for the White House, a man who was elected by the American people, and they're having to live on a military base because the left, they're just psychopaths. And the Atlantic
Josh,
writes about this.
The standard is people in the administration typically don't have to live on military. They just live in houses in Arlington or whatever.
Why wouldn't they? This is mind blowing that this has happened. But then again, they went after Kavanaugh, right? There's an assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh.
Right.
So again, but the Atlantic covers this, and it makes it seem like the administration officials are trying to shield themselves from the public. What? The audacity of these people. I mean, it
actually is their fault, according to the
because they're fomenting, all this because they dare.
No, it's actually your fault.
I mean,
well, here's the text. It is an ominous marker of the nation's polarization to which the Trump administration has itself contributed that some of these top public servants have felt a need to separate themselves from the public. It's your fault.
I mean, you laugh or you cry. I mean,
right. Yeah.
So again, this is what I'm talking about. We need Christopher Wray to be, put in handcuffs. We need Justice Boasberg to be impeached. And we need people who will hold up traffic or spray paint works of art to get the paddle, like corporal punishment. We need to start being serious about what's going on here. Otherwise, we're only going to get more of this left-wing violence, left-wing psychopath, and left-wing surveillance, the criminalization of, political speech, all this stuff. It's getting worse. And if we don't do something about it, the next 10 years are going to be bad news.
So, retweet. Good show, gang. Hope you guys have a great Halloween. Hopefully you get big bars from wherever you trick or treat. We're going to end today with the daily prayer. We have from St. John Paul II, Veritatis Splendor, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. O Mary, Mother of Mercy, watch over all people, that the cross of Christ may not be emptied of its power, that man may not stray from the path of the good, or become blind to sin, but may put his hope ever more fully in God, who is rich in mercy. May he carry out the good works prepared by God beforehand, and so live completely for the praise of his glory. Amen. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us. And hey, if you just couldn't handle that Erica was not in this episode, again, we have the great feminization video that we put together. I thought it was a lot of fun, edgy. Yeah. It was good. It was fun. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll catch you guys